Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, and I wish to introduce you to the forces and factions and features of the Warhammer 40k universe, the grim darkness of the far future. And today, we are to briefly look at some interesting units indeed, for they actually signal a little bit of a stage change for Warhammer 40k on the tabletop as well. Of course, I am referring to flyers. Today, we are to discuss the aerial support vehicles of the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines. Air superiority is crucial in nearly all forms of planet-based confrontation, and it is high time we had a brief look at them. So, for the basics, let us lean on existing wisdom. To quote, Gunships. The elite strike forces of the Adeptus Astartes cannot afford to be bogged down by enemy numbers or caught in battles of attrition against foes who command superior firepower. By deploying orbital dropships, airborne armored transports and lethal strike aircraft, they ensure their ability to reinforce, support, or relocate their ground forces with blistering speed. Stormraven Gunships. Stormraven Gunships streak into battle with their weapons blazing, flak whipping around them as they rake the foe with bolts, blasts, and warheads. More akin to a flying tank than a conventional dropship, the Stormraven is fast, maneuverable, and resilient. It boasts prodigious firepower and a substantial hull capacity. The gunship's troop bay is spacious enough to accommodate even massive Centurion warsuits or jump pack wearing assault marines. Meanwhile, the Stormraven's cargo grapples can bear a dreadnought straight into the heat of battle. Its engine turbines so powerful that they can hold the gunship aloft even with the considerable extra weight. Thanks to its vectored engines, the gunship can also go toe-to-toe in dogfights with even dedicated fighter craft. Ground attack is well within its capabilities too, for the Stormraven possesses a broad arsenal of anti-infantry and anti-armor firepower. Stormtalon Gunships. The Stormtalon Gunship is incredibly fast and agile, and makes a superb aerial interceptor and ground attack craft. With the press of a trigger rune, the Stormtalon's tech marine pilots purges his victims amidst a hail of missiles, bolts, and las blasts. All the while, the Stormtalon jinks and weaves through blossoming clouds of flak with incredible speed, enemy fire slicing around it to no avail. The Codex Astartes dictates that this small, agile craft is best used as an escort for its larger counterpart, the Stormraven, or to provide covering fire for advancing Space Marine ground forces. However, many chapters, most notably the White Scars, Solarhawks, and Raven Guard, also employed the Stormtalon as a dogfighter and vanguard strike craft to great effect. At one moment, a Stormtalon can be screaming over the battlefield at death-defying speeds. At the next, its pilot can switch over to use the gunship's repulsor systems, trading raw acceleration for agility. At the Battle of Cold Steel Ridge, entire squadrons of ultramarine Stormtalon pilots intercepted monstrous harpies and flocks of gargoyles, whose winged bodies darkened the skies. No sooner had the Stormtalons achieved air superiority than the pilots were vectoring their engines, hovering above their battle brothers and helping to hold back the advancing Tyranid swarms. They cut down hundreds of gaunts, staining the Macragian snows purple with rivers of stinking Xenos ichor. Stormhawk Interceptors. Squadrons of Stormhawk Interceptors plunge down from the cold void of space, launched from the mag cradles of orbiting warships to streak into battle. Closely related to the Stormtalon, Stormhawk Interceptors are specialized gunships that excel in aerial superiority. Whether dueling their foes through boiling storm clouds or hurtling between the crackling pylons of mountain-sized generatoriums, these high-altitude fighter craft dominate the skies. Their frontal armor and massive firepower make them excellent dogfighters, and it is common to see Stormhawk squadrons cutting through the skies in practiced attack patterns, enemies in their path disintegrating amid a hurricane of shots. Stormhawk pilots execute one target after another, while their Infernum Halo launchers discharge blazing flares that fill the path of oncoming ordnance and keep the interceptors themselves safe from harm. To those on the ground looking up, the golden halos of the flares are a signal that the skies belong to the Emperor's finest. The black streaks of plummeting wreckage that are the remains of enemy aircraft only add punctuation to this fact. The Stormhawk Interceptors will only relax their air superiority when the mission is complete, although during prolonged engagements they are known to return to base in order to resupply. End quote. The aerial models came into the scene like a thunderbolt, pun intended. Their advent meant a whole new strain of plastic purchasing would now be opened up for us mad fans. But it also meant something else, something wonderful. An expansion of the visual pageantry. Before, the hordes of littered men, armour, monsters and masses all made the typical Warhammer 40k gaming board a veritable riot of colour. Not a cacophony of clashing hues as it was in the 80s perhaps, but a dazzling feast for the eye. But with the addition of the flying units on their see-through stands, majestically hovering or frenetically thrusting their way across the board, the eye had so much more to take in. So many more layers than just a skimmer so near to the ground. All this allowed diorama enthusiasts to create bountiful new scenes that were more complex, more rewarding, more entrancing than ever before. But it also meant that the tactics of the game would have to alter. Anti-aircraft weapons were born, and now required. There were more ways to rapidly threaten nearly anything anywhere on the board, so the back-rank lurkers, as I call them, were not so easily able to scuttle their weaker units under cover until their advent would be more useful than in the initial carnage of the first rounds. In a word, for both arenas, it added depth. It is frequent and regular changes to the hobby, the battles, the figures, that make Warhammer so much fun, if you ask me. Yes, they can elicit a knee-jerk reaction from us old ghouls. Oh no, they're changing it. But in reality, it is the nature of a good game and the reason that Warhammer has continued to be so popular. Because it tries to develop, it tries to grow. Because it remains fresh by opening new doors, adding new layers, not necessarily of complication, but of variety and choice. It is a hobby that has mutated many times over its course. Not always for the better, some say, but it has tried to move forward. It has attempted to learn from its mistakes and walk a tricky line between immersion and fun. The former requires rules, but they can end up being the bane to the latter sometimes. Just remember that, yes, they are a company and need and want to make money, but I also genuinely and truly believe that the many goblins shackled to the many workstations at GW headquarters really do want us all to enjoy ourselves. And that is a thoroughly pleasant thought to have. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. I hope you have enjoyed this brief introduction to the aerial support vehicles of the Adeptus Astartes. If so, then please do consider liking and subscribing. If you do, then hit the notification button, as I would not want you to miss out. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.